October 17th, 2024. And can we have a roll call, please?
Director Clark.
Present.
Director Dye.
Here.
Director Marsh.
Here.
Director Randall.
Here.
Director Grant.
Oh, she can't unmute. Sorry.
Let me unmute you.
She'll unmute you.
I'm going to leave her unmuted.
There you go.
I'm here.
Okay. Also in attendance is General Manager Chuck Duffy, Legal Counsel Bill Parkin, and Assistant General Manager Hope Atmore.
Okay, before we get to the regular meeting agenda, we have an opportunity for members of the public to comment on matters under the jurisdiction of the district that are not on the agenda. Comments limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anybody who wants to make a comment on anything not on the agenda?
And just as a reminder, Nancy, they'll need to raise their
Right,
hands.
on the Zoom, you will need to raise your hand so that Hope can unmute you. Go ahead, Director Grant. Can you leave her on unmute?
I'm going to try.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm not sure what's going on with the mute situation. Hi, everybody. It's October 17th, 2024, and we are now 16 days away from November 5th and the end of voting. Mail-in ballots were already sent to residents. And if you didn't get a ballot, you can go to in-person voting downtown Half Moon Bay at the Sheriff's Substation, or you can drop off your ballot there or at the secure drop-off box by City Hall on Main Street. So if you need any help voting, please reach out to the board. I'm sure we'd love to help you. For years now, community members have expressed frustration with GCSD board directors, but this year we have an opportunity to shake up the board. You get to vote for 2 new GCSD board directors. And I encourage everyone to remember that the GCSD board runs by majority vote. When 3 board members vote in unison, it's a voting block. The voting block of a majority of 3 not only decides board decisions, but appoints fellow directors to park planning committees, other public boards like SAM, and even elects the president. The president who directs the general management team and all tasks, a president who decides what is and isn't on the GCSD agenda, a president who decides whether or not to address public concerns. Thus, your vote really matters. Your vote determines the next board. And this vote will either cement the voting block of 3 or open up the board to new perspectives. Just like previous GCSD board members David Seaton and Eric Sukamel, Jen Randall and I are just bit players. We are their replacements, accessories really to the board, since neither one of us has any power to get anything done. Because we're not part of a trifecta, nothing we do or say matters. The power of 3 controls all of GCSD's activities. So if you like the current board, Nancy Marsh and Wanda Boyles, but if you want change, vote for Janet Breyer and Iris Grant. But most of all, please vote. Your vote makes a difference. Thank you.
Since we're allowing campaigning board members.
Well, we can't comment on things that are not on the agenda.
You can make a comment. You can make a public comment.
I would make a comment.
Really?
There is an election coming up. It's an important one for the GCSD board because there is a contingent running that is trying to basically kill the community park. And we just heard from a member of the contingent. And so it's just simple. Vote for the people. If you want to see a beautiful community park in front of El Granada, vote for those candidates. If you don't, vote for the others.
Okay, I'm going to get the gavel in a minute. This is not a candidate rally. This is a board meeting for the business of the board. So Let's move on. Any other comments for anything not on the board?
Lenny has her hand up. I'm going to go ahead and
Go ahead. Hang on a sec, Lenny. Hang on a second, Lenny.
I've tapped it twice. She just needs to do it now.
Does she have to?
Lenny, you have to unmute yourself now. She's giving you access. There you go. You're unmuted. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I know this is not on the agenda, but the agenda is to approve the park plans so far tonight, right? But I just wanted to say I'm in favor of the park. Of course, I worked for 25 years to try to help get this land and have a park formed for the community. And I'm really happy that it's coming about. But I did not have this specific plan envisioned. It was more of a passive park. And I think it has some LCP violations in it. So this is just my thought. And I just wanted to bring that forward. And I'm wondering if the Midcoast Community Council did work with you on certain issues which are listed in a letter dated June 12th, 2024 about various issues. And they were hoping to work with the GCSD. So I'm not against a park here at all. Of course, I'm for one. And I'm really glad finally after 25 years that we're getting a park, and you've done a lot of good work and everything. But I just don't agree with the negative deck, the mitigated negative deck of it. So the view corridors and I think they're definitely impacting, as well as the traffic. And I'm really fear about the traffic. Yes, I live right on the front. And that is why I know it's very important to preserve these.
Lenny, you're commenting on something that's on the agenda.
Oh,
So
I didn't think that comments regarding this plan were on the agenda. I thought that
yeah,
the item was
it's item number 1, Lenny.
It's,
So,
I
yes,
thought
you
the
can
item
comment-
was under-
you can
I'm sorry.
comment that. Yeah,
I
that's
thought the
okay.
item was to approve the plan.
Yeah, and that's what you're talking about as part of that. So yeah, you can comment at that time.
It's not to.
Okay,
Sorry. All right, rules for general public participation are that's just to the board, and we don't discuss or comment what's on
Right.
general public participation because it's not on the agenda. We'll move then, seeing no other hands, to the regular meeting agenda. I know we have a lot of interest in this one, so I'm going to go through go.
I think there's a member of the public that does want to speak during.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I had a comment, I signed up for a non-agenda item, but I
Oh.
totally.
Yeah, I was like, that you have.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but on
I thought everything I was doing was agenda items.
Yeah.
Hold on. I think I only had the one for an agenda item.
Yeah, it doesn't, public comment.
Oh, I see,
You
I
can
see.
speak, yeah.
Go ahead, Janet.
Yeah, Janet Breer, resident of Granada. I just had two items I believe are non-agenda items. One is the timing of this meeting, and agenda item 1, which is the approving the plan to the Granada Community Park and Recreation Center. I think that the timing is inappropriate considering that we have a general election coming up for the board to suddenly put on the agenda less than 3 weeks before an election, an item that the public will not be able to voice their concerns about using their voice to vote. So voting is the way to change things. It's not necessarily here, and people are going to vote. And I think that it's ill-advised to be taking this up on the agenda this evening, so close to a vote. The other item I wanted to discuss was I didn't see it anywhere in the material provided, a budget for the park and recreation program, the park. I was wondering if we do have a budget. I have a preliminary budget that was presented in March of 2022. Is there any other budgets?
Janet, we can't,
I can respond briefly. Yeah, there has been no other budget since then.
Okay, so
And
March,
we've discussed in the past, until the board actually undertakes a plan, whatever phase of the plan is, there won't be a budget attached.
Okay, so the only budget the public can actually look at is the budget that was in the BuzzFeed in March of 2022. That was presented at that time. And at that time, it was presented that the expenditures for the park would be center acquisition 1.8 million, and that was going to be financed, but that's no longer the case, correct?
It's been purchased, yeah.
And the second item was the community recreation center. They estimated the cost. They didn't, they just said they wanted to get a $2 million note for 20 years. Is that still the case?
Yeah, that was a very preliminary, but I don't want to go too deep. I'll answer a couple simple questions, but it's not.
I just have one more after this. So that's no longer the case. You don't know if you're going to finance 2 million or the
We
amount.
don't have a plan, and with that, this is part of the mitigated neg deck tonight. A
Right.
broader plan. It's not a specific construction plan.
Okay. And then the budget from 2022 says that the park construction, you were going to get a loan for 6.5 million at 5%. Is that still the general
And
park?
if you the agenda memo prior to that said this is a very preliminary budget because we didn't have plans then. So yeah,
Okay.
I wouldn't put much credence in that, quite honestly.
Thank you.
Hey, sorry, I just noticed the two boxes. We haven't seen speaker slips in a while. Brandon and Christy, you also checked the general public participation, or did you want to talk about the neg and the plan?
We just wanted to show our support for the community part. I may have checked the wrong box. So
Okay, I'll call on you when we get to the agenda item.
Later.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so no other hands up. We'll move to the regular meeting agenda. The item is consideration of a resolution adopting the mitigated negative declaration and the associated mitigation monitoring and reporting program and approving the plan for the Granada Community Park and Recreation Center. The process, because I know we have a lot of people here who aren't frequently here. The way that the agenda items will work is that Chuck and Ken from Montrose will open up and explain the agenda item. Then we will move to public comment. If you're in the room and you'd like to make a comment and you haven't already filled out a speaker slip, please do so. On Zoom, if you'd like to make a comment, raise your hand. Hope will try to keep track of them in order. It's a little difficult to do on Zoom, but do raise your hand and she will call on you and unmute you as the turns come up. We have a lot of people and a lot of interest tonight. So in the interest of respecting everybody's time, we will hold comments limited to 3 minutes. And the timer will be visible to those in the room when you're commenting and visible on Zoom when you're commenting on Zoom. After all the comments are heard, we'll close public comment and then there'll be time for the board to discuss, ask questions, and progress to a decision. Okay, so first I'm going to hand over Chuck to you.
Okay, so I'll just give a brief summary of my agenda memo, and then I'll turn it over to Ken Schwartz from Montrose Environmental, who did the actual mitigated negative declaration. So as I point out in my memo, we started this process in 2014 when we went to a vote of the board, a vote of the people to gain parks and recreation powers. That was approximately 60-40 approval.
Sorry, I'm just telling Dan to give it to me.
Okay. Oh, to see that. And since that time, we've been working diligently to make this park project progress. And back in 2018, we hired K&K to do a landscape design and overall design plan. We did numerous community outreach, which Nancy and Barbara would probably have a better take on that. But 6 community meetings, 3 surveys. The county did previous surveys. So we've been working on
64 community meetings.
64. Well, I was going to write that. And we've had this item on our agenda for the past, Lord knows how many years, probably 50, 60, 70, right? So we've done a lot of public and whatnot. So we hired the design firm. The board approved the design in April of 2023. At that point in time, there was a preliminary approval to start the permitting process. So you need a preliminary design to start permitting process. We then hired Montrose Environmental to put together the mitigated negative declaration. That's a big document. As you all see, the agenda tonight is 766 pages. So it's a large document. They've put that together, and this is what we're considering tonight, is approval, your consideration of the MND as well as the park plan. So that's kind of an overall picture of where we've been and where we're going. And I'll turn it over to Ken Schwartz from Montrose Environmental. Ken, you've got the floor.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see me? I'm not sure if you can see me or not, but
No.
okay. I can see the meeting room. Well, thank you. Thanks very much, Chuck. So, yeah, I'll try and keep this brief, but
Can you
target.
turn on your camera, Ken? Sorry, we'd like to be able to see you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Let me do that.
There we go.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. How you doing? And let me see here. I was just going to blur this so that you might not see my dog running around. Anyway, CEQA is the California Environmental Quality Act. It's the measure that the rules and regulations regarding when a public agency takes a discretionary action in California that results in a change to the physical landscape. And there's many ways to comply with that, but most ways start with conducting an initial study. And that's in the document that's part of the agenda packet here, an initial study. An initial study is basically an environmental analysis of the potential effects of the project. And then from there, as you study the potential effects, mitigation measures can be developed. And so when people talk about the ISMND, that's the initial study, mitigated negative declaration. And that's what was developed here. And that was circulated for public comment starting May 16th. It was out for public comment for about a month until June 17th. And that public comment period was extended then into July, up to July 19th. And even some comments, I think, came in a little bit after that. There was a lot of interest. Over 90 comment letters were submitted. And many of the comment letters had multiple comments within the letter. So we're talking about, well over 100 comments here in general. The comments, and I bring this up because when a public agency, in this case, the board here, is considering adopting this type of document to comply with CEQA, they consider the document, they consider public comments on the document as well. And so when we think about the public comments, they generally fell into four categories, I would describe them. There were comments related to the project design or project components. For example, people may have wanted to see other amenities in the park instead of those that were proposed under the project. So they wanted something a little different. There were also comments related to the potential impacts of the project that were analyzed in the initial study, mitigated negative declaration. For example, potential traffic impacts associated with new park facilities or potential impacts to biological resources at the project site. Then there were comments that were related to the community and perhaps the project, but they were outside of the scope of the CEQA process. The CEQA process has kind of a scope of what's to be considered and not. So, for example, comments regarding the desire to keep the on-site preschool open, or what the funding sources might be for the project, or whether or not there's even a need for the park. Those are kind of outside the scope of CEQA, but there were comments that were received and were read and are considered. And then there were comments related to the project, but did not, identify an inadequacy or an inaccuracy in the initial study. So there were just additional comments, and the combination of the comments did result in edits to the initial study mitigated negative declaration, and those are included in errata section at the end of the memorandum. That's the response to comment memorandum that's in the agenda packet. So there are some updates there. So based on all the comments, that memorandum on the responses to the comments was developed and provided in a memo format for the board's consideration tonight in their consideration of adopting the initial study mitigated negative declaration. And as a separate consideration, be approving the project. Another key element of this package for the CEQA compliance is the Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Plan, or sometimes called program, an MMRP. And an MMRP was developed for this project, and it describes all the mitigation measures that would be required to go along with the project, including the monitoring schedule, the frequency, the reporting actions on that monitoring, who the responsible party would be for those mitigation actions and their reporting and the schedule. So that's, in a nutshell, what's included in that large agenda packet that describes the initial study mitigated negative declaration. So with that, I think I'll turn it back over to Chuck.
Okay, and I'll turn it over to you, Nancy.
Okay, with that startup, I think it's 7 speaker slips, which I will take in the order in which they were handed to me. 7. So I'm going to start with Brandon Fields in the room. And in the room, you have to please step up to the podium so you can be heard both on the recording and on the Zoom.
Hello, my name is Brandon Fields. My wife and I just moved to this community about a month ago. Bought our first house together here and just wanted to come and say hi, introduce ourselves, and show our support for the new community park that you guys are building. A little bit about me. I'm a 51-year-old skateboarder and small business owner. So I was kind of excited to see that you guys have plans for a bit of a skate park, and I wanted to offer any assistance if you guys need it for planning or whatnot. And that's pretty much it.
All right. Thank you, Brandon.
Yep.
Next, I have Christy Goulart Fields, if I said that correctly.
Yeah, you did. Hi, everyone. Brandon and I, as he said, just moved here. And, as a new member of the community, I came here tonight to learn more about this project. At first look, it looks like a gorgeous project and one that I could really get behind. Having lived in San Francisco, which has numerous parks, and also being a part of other coastside communities up and down California, I've only ever seen an enhancement made to the community when there is something like a park, a community park. But I would be amiss if I didn't say I'm curious to know what maybe some of the opposing statements are about it. I mean, just to be a well-informed voter and community member. So I am here tonight to listen to that. And yeah, thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next is Mike Eberly.
My name is Mike Eberly. I've been a resident of El Granada for over a decade. Virtually no one wants this. I cede my time to candidate Janet Breyer, if you please, if we're doing Robert's rules of.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
That's fine. Janet, you're up next. Janet Breyer.
Nancy,
I'm sorry.
there may be other people that may want to cede to Ms. Breyer. So I suggest you take all public comment, and
And then come back.
she's come to us in advance of the meeting to talk about that, and then we come back to her.
Then we'll move on to Elizabeth Andrews.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Andrews, and this is my first GCSD meeting.
Great.
I am very impressed so far, and I just want to thank the board and all of the staff for your service. This is not an easy job, and it just is really wonderful for our community that you're here doing this. Thank you for your service. I am not here in my capacity as a member of the public. I am retained counsel on behalf of your tenant, Picasso Preschool. And hopefully you all received the letter that I sent you earlier this week on behalf of my client. And really what I'd like to say during this period is that my client and I do not oppose the park. We do not oppose the rec center. And we really don't oppose anything that you're trying to do as part of agenda item 1, except the part where we get evicted and kicked out. We've been in the community for 30 years. We have educated an entire generation of our youngest community members. And, I can't for the life of me really understand why this park and rec center cannot happen without evicting my client. And the only reasoning that I'm aware of, and I hope Mr. Parkin can correct me if I'm missing something, but it appears to me that the board thinks that it exceeds your statutory powers to continue. I mean, you're currently the landlord, but it exceeds your statutory powers to continue as the landlord to my client. And I took a look at those statutes, and my team of litigators took a look at those statutes. And to say that the statutory interpretation that you have been told it is wrong in the sense that reasonable minds can differ about what these statutes mean, that's not the case. The legal position that you are basing this decision on to evict my client is very embarrassing for you. It is not correct. It will not hold up in court. And I looked through your 766-page report, and I completely appreciate the 64 community meetings that Ms. Dye mentioned. I appreciate Mr. Duffy's comments about this process going on since 2014, but I don't think throughout any of that you have fully assessed the litigation exposure if my client's lease is not renewed on this one extremely flimsy legal basis. And for that reason, I would like to request that you table agenda item 1, not vote on it until you've had a chance to meet with my client and me with your council president.
Thank you. Next, we have Stephen Pallmeyer.
And if I can say now is a good time to remind people, 3 minutes, please.
All right.
No, we're loose. So you're wrapping up, so yeah.
I'll try to be fast. I hate wasting time. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I'm Stephen Pallmeyer. I'm a member of the community, 8 years. My wife and I have 3 small children, ages 0 to 6. My oldest attended Picasso. Currently, nobody is enrolled with Picasso. I'm here as a parent to talk for the preschool and against the community center as envisioned in replacing the preschool wholly. In tonight's agenda packet, the public comments, Picasso was mentioned over 100 times with dozens of respondents, 100% of which were in support of the school and remaining as a school. This is not a new topic. It's been debated for years, pretty more or less continuously. I think I haven't spoken here before, but we've talked about it, emailed, et cetera. I think everyone understands the position that I'm about to make. And I think 2 things are clear to be true. One is there is qualified support for the park, subject to some parking, noise, cost, environmental considerations that everyone's aware of. And I think there is broad support for the school. It's an essential service. We need it. There's already a critical shortage of preschool capacity on the coast, and it's pretty much a disaster for anyone who has to deal with that and the alternatives, which include moving away for your kids. School doesn't magically begin at age 6. I think maybe in the 1950s, before we had both household parents working, that might have worked out, but here it doesn't. And this is 2024. We need more preschools. So what is not true is that the public needs a community center at the expense of the school. In other words, to prioritize GCSD office space and pickleball over early childhood education, I think is ridiculous. It should not happen. One is a nice to have, one is a must have. What we should be talking about is an expansion of preschool services. That's what we should be talking about. And so, what is new? We now have an email that I've seen from LAFCO that explicitly states that it is not a problem for you to continue to lease to the preschool. You don't need approval for that at all. You would need approval to become a preschool operator, which you have no need to be. And then the legal opinion that that Elizabeth has clarified as well negates the previous opinion that the school needed to be evicted. So what next? I hate problems without solutions. I'm a pragmatist. I think you guys do a lot of hard work. These meetings are alone a lot of hard work, and I know there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. So number one, there's an election. I think let's see what happens. I think I agree with Elizabeth, this should be tabled. But I would also ask for the members of the board to, if not go on record, at least support or consider supporting the following 3 tangible suggestions, which are productive, viable alternatives to the current plan for the community center. Number one is sign a long-term lease with Picasso to remain a school. Again, I'm not for or against the park. Number 2, sell back the property. I know that's been mentioned in the past. Sell it to the parents. I'll participate, help make it happen, negotiate with you, can make that work. That's not a problem. And number 3, which I thought was interesting, I've heard proposed in the past as well, is consider creating a hybrid community center and school. I think the current school capacity is 50 students. I think it's operating at about 24 students. So 24 plus is a win against the status quo, and I'll wrap it up. But it would, how cool would it be to have a school by day and community center in the off hours and the weekends where the old and the young can, communicate and share experiences. I just think that would be great. So please consider those 3 alternatives.
Thank you, Stephen. I have speaker slip, and for the person who just came in, if you want to make comments, can you fill out a speaker slip? Dan Haggerty.
Good evening, everyone. Dan Haggerty, resident of El Granada, 13-year member of almost 13 years of Mid-Coast Community Council. Tonight I'm speaking on my own, just for myself. In regards to the overall plans for the park, I've always said from the beginning, since this started, that we should try to keep it as simple as possible and open and as natural as possible. I think that there should be, since it's a park next to a beach, I think that there should be a portion of a sand element to the park. I do agree that there should be a consideration of a multi-use concept to not evict the preschool. And I also believe that the current informal parking lot should stay. You're going to find the maximum amount of parking spaces and, to help the visitors and the community. Not only visitors use that parking lot, but the community uses it also. And, when we start to chop it up and limit that, put it further away from the beach, I just don't agree that that's a good idea. So I'd like to see that the existing informal parking lot kind of stays. I do object. Part of the plan are the flashing light crossings. I believe there's 2 proposed right here on Avenue Cocola, and then another one over in this area. So that's 3. The flashing light, it's kind of an urban element, and we're a small town feel, natural. I want to propose an alternative, which is being used in a lot of different communities around the nation. There's a website. It's got all the information. It's called seemeflags.com. And the concept is, instead of having flashing lights, which, humans like to press buttons, whether there's a car there or not. They're going to pass by, they're going to press that button. There's currently one on Highway 1 in Moss Beach, which I've witnessed several times that it's got some kind of a problem where it stays flashing all day long, maybe even more than one day. So, yeah, I want to say that's, I'm going to go into some more reasons why I think
Dan, you've got 30 seconds.
Okay, so I'd like to read the tips that's on that website. I encourage everybody here to go to that website, cbflags.com, read the tips, because with the tips, it really makes it proactive versus hitting a button and just walking straight. I see that happen all the time. People don't look. With the flag, you're creating an element that is more proactive, that's training people, putting them in practice to actually look left, look right, look left again. And this is a model that really, goes broad, very broad.
It's time.
Okay, and let me just say last that there's studies that say these flashing lights give a false sense of security. I've witnessed many times people, they don't even look. They think they hit the button and they're safe, and then they just go right out. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. We have one more comment in the room. We're doing all in the room first, if it's okay. All right. This is Will Plaxico.
That's right.
You were on there. I'm going to go.
Awesome. Thanks. And yeah, really appreciate the efforts. New to the community, I'm a carpetbagger from Kings Mountain. My wife and I bought a home here about 3 years ago. Want to say, yeah, first and foremost, same thing, echo the same, appreciate, there's a ton of work going into these kind of efforts over the many years. Having kind of dove deeply into the IS and M&D though, do have strong concerns that there is not a means to account for childcare on the coast, the last remaining childcare center. I think I'm going to ask a leading question of the board. You can answer it in a couple of seconds if it's helpful. I think first off, though, it's important to say, definitely supportive and excited about the concept of a recreational park. There's some pretty neat looking concepts. It seems, I know there would be big efforts to expand the scope and the approved scope to account for a childcare facility, but it seems just like such an obvious thing and very important to account for. I'd ask the leading question I have for you is, once GCSD was just a sanitation district, how did GCSD expand your scope to account for recreation? I know the answer, but the question maybe for one of you to answer.
It's a very long story.
Yeah, I know, but there's
simply put, the board directed us to apply to LAFCO to gain Parks and Rec powers. We went through the entire LAFCO process. I know because I did it.
Yep.
It took 10 years.
Yep.
And then we went to the vote of the people, and that's how we got those powers.
Understand. And so there is a process to add services. And I think hosting early childcare, you could easily see that, tying into that. If that's a similar process to do so. The second thing I will point out, I'm a much bigger fan of getting more consensus, get more people in support, given the small community. Carrots are always better than a stick, but I will point out in the IS and M&D, all of the preschool comments were kind of not just dismissed as not relevant. It was kind of a standard boilerplate response. And it's very easy to see a connection where you say, if you're eliminating, or the purpose of the recreation center is serving to eliminate childcare, you're sending traffic over the hill between 7:45 and 8:30 a.m., which is a clear traffic impact. And so I do think the legal arguments would be pretty easy to poke holes there as well. And so I'd rather than say let's avoid more contentious matters. How do you expand the tent to get more buy-in? I know you put in a ton of work, but really encourage you to step back and think creatively, because I've heard that, and there's so many families that will really be impacted by this, and they're important members of the community and new members of the community as well. So encourage you to do that. And I want to, as a new member, help work on some of those solutions with you. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. We'll say this agenda item has the MND, which is not as relevant to the preschool, but it also is the third part of it is progressing the plan. So we'll find all those comments relevant, and we'll hear them all. You're still waiting for Janet till we go through the Zoom?
Yeah, that's what council and Mr. Duffy suggested that we do.
Okay, then.
I believe people will see time on Zoom.
Right, so if anybody sees.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Then I'll go at the end, so that it's easier for.
I was explaining to them.
Yep, got it. Okay,
So.
Okay, we're going to move to Zoom and Hope will call on people one at a time and give you the permission to unmute.
So the first person is going to be Trevor Push, followed by Patrick Mulligan. Trevor.
I apologize. I'll have to make this quick as I'm trying to put my son down, but I just wanted to comment in support of Picasso. I wholeheartedly agree with their counsel and the position that she's taken. It's really not clear to me why we can't have both a park and a preschool. Feels like we could certainly incorporate both. I can't say that I'm pro or against the park. We already have Corey Park, but so I'm also a resident here in El Granada. My wife and I have a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old. So just wanted to voice my support for Picasso and request that the board table the approval of this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor.
And Nancy, can I take a second? What's the process for them? You send them a message to unmute?
Yes, and they raise their hand
just so
and then
everyone understands that.
I tap that they can unmute. Okay, so Patrick Mulligan is going to be next, followed by Lenny Schultz.
Yeah,
Still
Hope,
muted,
you'll
Patrick.
have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi, Patrick Mulligan here. Sorry about that. I'll keep this brief. I also agree with the Picasso Council that this should be tabled as is. As a daughter of a 2- and 5-year-old daughter, and my wife and I are both physicians working over the hill. Picasso is a linchpin of the community for young families. And as mentioned earlier, there's a severe shortage of childcare on the coast. And I just don't understand. They do not seem mutually exclusive to have both a park and a daycare for the children and the young families in the community.
Thank you, Patrick.
So Lenny Schultz will be next, followed by James Powers.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for calling on me. Thanks for all the work that you've done. I really appreciate it. And I know how hard this kind of work is. And it's exciting to have this park here. From the time I moved here 30 some years ago, I envisioned a park for the people of this community. And that's why I worked for it for so long. And that's why I led the Measure G effort to get Parks and Rec a special district. So I am not one who wants to squash the park and all this, whatever it was said in the beginning. But I do have some concerns. I'd like this matter to be tabled. And I really would like a long-term lease to be made with I know we've discussed this ad infinitum with the Picasso people. I just feel so bad about that issue. But I'm also concerned about the mitigated negative deck because I'm not so sure that that it's in complete compliance with our LCP. In particular, the park design. It seems like the view corridors they may not have understood how important some of these views are. The people who were, assessing this and saying that there's no impact, there's impact on the extension of the community center down there. There's impact on viewing Mavericks from the streets of Granada. That's a significant view. And anyway, they probably didn't, intentionally do that. But I'm just bringing that to the public will lose out. Not just me. I live on the edge. That's why I worked for it for so long. I love this land. And also the traffic impact. All the people who live along the front of Granada are going to be impacted by the traffic that's going to be pushed inside of El Granada. It's a community park. It's not a county park, but it's going to attract a lot of people from outside. Not that I don't want to share, but the thing is, it's a community park, so the residents should not have to be impacted by this. And where I live is right across from Picasso, not right across, but, very close to Picasso School. And I've seen lots and lots of near accidents, and I've seen some real accidents there. So, and also the traffic impact. All the people who live along the front of Granada are going to be impacted by the traffic that's going to be pushed inside of El Granada. It's a community park. So it's not a county park, but it's going to attract a lot of people from outside. Not that I don't want to share, but the thing is, it's a community park, so we should not have to be impacted by this. And where I live is right across from Picasso, not right across, but, very close to Picasso School. And I've seen lots and lots of near accidents, and I've seen some real accidents there. So I wish this could have been in a different area because I think it's kind of along with the traffic, and the fire department comes through there all the time. I mean, I'm listening to that fire engine all the time. The traffic impact, the restroom in the middle of the strip, I don't know if you built in the middle, but
Wow.
sorry.
Sorry. Dramatic. Sorry, I didn't realize.
That's okay. I don't know why restrooms have to be the center of everything, like, right, the one across the street, right? You know, in the most beautiful section of the view corridor, they put a giant restroom there. Anyway.
Lenny, you got to wrap up, please. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm in favor of a long-term lease for the Picasso School, and I don't agree with the negative declaration. Please don't approve that because it's just not happening. That's not the way it is. And did you work with the Midcoast Community Council on all these issues that they listed in their great letter written in June 2024? Did you work with them on all of these issues?
Lenny, we can address that when we get to the board discussion.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for your work. I appreciate all the work you've done.
Thank you, Lenny.
So next we'll have James Powers, followed by Chris Rogers.
Or Mindy? No.
Hi. Firstly, I would like to say, thank you so much for putting all this on and doing all the planning. I think it's pretty fantastic. I'm very much in favor of this moving forward. I think, I've heard a lot of people kind of complain about, or not complain, but have comments about how it could be better or more optimal. But I think it takes a lot to come up with something perfect. And I think searching for perfection, sometimes, you don't get anything. So I think this is a great plan as is. I think, I love the idea of there being a dog park. I think, me and my wife live on the coast and we're planning to have kids. And I think it'd be a great community space to bring our kids to one day. And just absolutely looking forward to moving forward on this, and hopefully things go smoothly. That's it for me.
Thank you, James.
So next we'll have Chris Rogers, followed by Mindy.
Hi there. Am I being heard?
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks very much. So I wrote two letters of comment on the ISMND, in which I introduced myself as a subject matter expert in biological resources and wetlands, and that I presented substantial evidence of inaccuracies or deficiencies in the ISMND and some of the supporting technical documents. While I can appreciate Ken's large task of responding to all of the information that was provided, and I recognize, having been on been in his position as an environmental consultant that often worked with or in competition with Ken's former company, I can appreciate why a lot of the comments were presented as pointing out that they did not provide any evidence of inaccuracy or deficiencies in the environmental report. But I feel strongly that mine did, and I'm disappointed to read the comment that directed at my topics of expertise that simply dismissed them by repeating the work that was done and as far as trying to, identify biological resource issues and wetland issues. He didn't make any effort to actually address the comments. And I think that's a real weakness in the response to comments memo. The other thing that I want to talk about is sort of the community process. There's been a lot of talk, chatter, I'll say, on social media about representing opponents of the park or
proponents of elements of the park, or even people like me just commenting on deficiencies in the documents as like Johnny come lately, coming out of the woodwork, you know, at the 11th hour. Well, people like me have been making comments for several years, and we are just exercising during the public comment period our democratic right to make comments during the public comment period. That's the time to do it. It's not a topic. It's not a point of view that needs to be demonized and criticized in public. And I just think that the board would benefit from recognizing that as representatives of the entire community, there are going to be people who are going to differ with you, and that you need not simply rely on.
All right, sorry, Chris. Go ahead and wrap up, please.
You don't need to just rely on the fact that you've done lots of meetings. We know that. We've been to a lot of meetings. We've participated in the surveys, but we are simply exercising our right during the public comment period to provide public comments on a public document. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you, Chris.
So next we will have Mindy, followed by Zach Isaacson.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I have been a proud parent of children at Picasso since 2020 and a co-sider since 2008. My husband was born and raised here for many years, so we do have a lot of roots in this community. To the point, I have attended many of these meetings over the years discussing this topic about the community center. And I think as you guys have done surveys, there is no doubt that the community wants this, just not at the expense of removing a valuable resource on the coast of early childhood education. I wanted to pose a question to the board. I think it has been probably about a year that Supervisor Ray Mueller attended one of these meetings and made a promise to help this community find more resources for early childhood education. I was wondering if you had any updates or if he would be invited back to provide some updates on his efforts in doing that for the community.
Mindy, I actually had a text conversation with him just ahead of this meeting, so we'll comment on that when the board comments.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I will stay tuned to listen. Once again, I am in strong support of keeping Picasso, and whatever we can do as a community to keep that, I'm on board. Thank you for your time.
I just got a message from someone who said they're in the waiting room but can't get their hand raised. The number 415-531-5142. I don't
say those last four digits for me again. So
I'm sorry, the last four digits are 5142. I'm not sure who that is, but
I will look for them after I get the next person started. So our next speaker will be Zach Isaacson, followed by Laura Smith.
Hello, my name is Zach Isaacson. I've been living on the coast since 2018. I am very excited about the idea of having this park. I'm very excited about taking my kid when it's built. The biggest issue is I currently take my kid to that park at the Picasso School. And my biggest question is, it seems like we're not going to be changing the structure at all. And I would love to keep the kids in the school if possible, and just really want to know why we're unable to give a long-term lease if it seems like all of the legal hurdles have been eliminated. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
So Laura Smith, and I'm going to keep looking for that other person. I've not found them yet. Oh, now a couple more people have raised their hands now. So Laura Smith, followed by Kate Broderick. And give me 1 second.
Hi, yes, this is Laura. I live here with my wife, Krista. We have a child at Picasso, and we are in huge favor of keeping a preschool here on the coast. And we say that knowing that our child will be out of Picasso, but if we had not had that resource when we needed a preschool back 2 years ago, we would have been either driving him down the coast or driving him off the coast. And I do feel like that this has been a consistent message this committee has received, and it doesn't seem to be a valued one. So it's a little frustrating as a voter and a property owner here. The second thing is I don't really like the financials that I've seen on this, and I am worried that it's going to ultimately raise taxes and put more burden on those of us who are paying those taxes in this community, and that's a problem for me. And finally, I don't really like that this is being voted on now before the election. It feels like this is something that should wait until after the election. Thank you. That's what I had to say.
Thank you, Laura.
So Kate Broderick, and I will continue to look for that other number. I don't see it on here though, unless they're under a name.
Did they say they're in the waiting room? Is there anyone in the waiting room? Check there too.
Let me get Kate Broderick started. Hang on. Yes. Okay. I
You have to see
Kevin.
Hope juggling multiple computers and hands up here. So please bear with
Kate,
us.
you can go ahead.
Okay. Hello, my name is Kate Broderick. I'm a local resident who grew up here. I attended all the local schools throughout my education and returned here with my husband to raise our family. My son, who is now at El Granada Elementary, is a Picasso alumni. And my daughter currently attends and will be attending TK in the fall. To be clear, I don't have any skin in the game regarding whether Picasso closes. Both of my children have benefited from the care and education provided by Candace and her team. But when the GCSD displaces the preschool, I will not be personally affected. However, the community will feel this lasting effect of losing this valuable community resource. Picasso offers the only licensed affordable preschool between Montera and Half Moon Bay. The loss will have an everlasting impact on the community. The limited availability of preschool spots will prevent children from having the opportunity to experience preschool, which can have a lasting impact on children. It's a plain fact that kids who attend preschool programs are better prepared for kindergarten than kids who don't, period. Parents who want to maybe go back to work won't be able to if they can't find adequate childcare. And families may choose to move away or not move here because there's inadequate childcare options. If you vote to approve the planning of displacing a preschool before a permanent location is secured, your vote means that you do not support children's development, and you're not ensuring that they'll be kindergarten ready. You also aren't supporting local working families. You need to wait until an alternative location can be secured for a preschool that can be or if the preschool could be included in the program for this community center, because it is a community center and this is a community need. In addition to displacement of the preschool, a final 2 notes on the issue. And a few people have already spoken about this, but there is no justifiable need for you to vote now on this issue in the midst of an election. Literally, this is an election period. And the biggest issue that GCSD has worked on in the past couple of years, and it's really shameful how obvious it is that you're trying to push this through in the event that Nancy and Matthew are voted out. It's disgraceful. It's also so shameful that the GCSD voted to name this park after themselves instead of taking the opportunity to honor the Native people who originally inhabited this land that was stolen from them. At the time, Nancy Marsh stated that she recognized the Chippewa as part of the place broadly, but to her, in this particular place, the only reason that there aren't apartments or office buildings is that the people who worked on this project. That is a message that GCSD's voice matters above all else. If you vote today to get this approval, they're voting against the community, and it's not what they want. Please listen to the community and stop doing things for yourself.
Thank you, Kate.
So Steve and Kevin, I think you were trying to raise your hand, but with your actual physical hand. I don't see anybody in the waiting room right now. So I'm not sure who that person is, but I will keep looking for them. Let me get, okay. Steve, you should be able to go ahead and unmute now.
Hi, this is Kevin, actually. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have lived on the coast in El Granada specifically for 20 years with my husband. First, I want to take an opportunity to thank the GCSD and everybody involved with this park program. I think that sometimes your work as volunteers seems thankless, and a lot of people like to point fingers at you. I know that the mandate of your group is to act on behalf of the community, not on behalf of yourselves. So I don't see that any of the actions that have taken place are benefiting yourselves, but moreover, benefiting this community. The park as it stands, I'm in favor for. I don't understand some of the arguments that are being made, but that's, I guess, neither here nor there. I don't understand the idea that a long-term lease has not been offered when 4 years of leasing has been offered to Picasso School. I do think preschool education and child care is important, but I also think that this project would really benefit a broader community. And I know so many of my community members that want to see this move forward. I don't see this vote as being divisive or guided by some other issue. This project has been years in the making, years and years in the making. I have no affiliation with GCSD. I have been part of conversations. I've received flyers. I've gotten emails. I've seen renderings. So for me, I feel like a lot of the arguments against seem, I don't know, I just don't know where people have been. And somebody made a comment that they're starting to feel that people are attacking them for coming out at the 11th hour. Well, so a lot of us community members, a lot of this does seem like at the 11th hour. Both my husband and I are in support of the project as is. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, and we have Rolvick Thomas up next, and I don't see anybody else with their hand raised after that, but I will keep watching.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Just wanted to pop in and reiterate and echo the same thing once more. We have 2 kids, Lucy, who's currently at Picasso. She's 2 and just started a couple of months ago. That community has welcomed us in. We're a part of the yacht club here. We've been living here for almost 7 years. We enjoy the community so much, and just wanted to echo the same sentiment. It is incredibly hard for parents and new parents to navigate the process of preschool. Having something that's down the street not only makes us feel very secure and welcomed in the community, it also makes our daughter feel that way. We get in the car and she has one song that she's allowed to pick between our home and getting to school. And in her mind, that's her way of understanding how close she is to home and how she can feel safe and excited to be there when she gets there and into the arms of the incredible teachers that work there. Again, just wanted to reiterate and echo the same sentiments, hoping that there's a way that both can exist. Definitely also, very excited about new opportunities, but know that a community and the change of a community starts with its youngest members. So we should be taking care and taking note to that as much as possible. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. More hands, Hope.
I don't see any more hands. Let me just check on the next screen. Okay. No, I don't see any more hands right now.
Okay, I didn't hear any more seats. Can we come back around to Janet?
Thank you.
So 6 minutes.
So Janet, you've got 6 minutes. Right?
Okay, got it. Thank you. Again, I'm Janet Brayer. I'm a resident of Granada, and I've been a resident since 1988. I'm also running for a seat on this board, but I'm here tonight to talk about my review of the documents and the agenda items that were presented last week. The public received notice of the proposed project in May of 2024 pursuant to CEQA requirements. These people that submitted comments are not last minute naysayers. They're exercising the right under the law and CEQA, and they were given 30 days to submit comments. That 30-day period was extended from June to July 17th, 2024. GCSD then spent about 3 months reviewing those comments. And they received over 90 comments during that comment period. These comments were presented to the community via agenda on October 11th. So I printed them out. So this entire packet was presented 7 days ago to the community to review and comment and prepare for this meeting. I think the time period provided was inadequate. I think calling a meeting today without providing this material in a manner from which the public can actually spend time looking at it is inappropriate. Not only did we get this, we got this to review and go through. Most people are working, most people are busy, many people have other obligations. And to submit all this paper to the community 7 days before what you want to vote on tonight, I think is inappropriate. Of the over 90 comments received, there was only 4 positive comments. And I went through and looked at all the comments and then the errata that was the compilation that was put together. And I felt that many of the comments were certainly simply dismissed. Before I get into the comments, again, as noted when I previously spoke off agenda regarding the budget's not once discussed in this package that's been presented. I've been to this, come to meetings here many times. I've raised the budget and I'm always told, Janet, now's not the time for a budget. I think it is time to have numbers presented to the community. The park reserves as set forth in the packet we received tonight at page 765, the park reserve is 1.189182 million. That's for 24-25. So using the projections that we have, and even using the lower 6.5 million, which is not going to be the cost, that's close to 6 times our reserves. And nothing's been presented to alleviate the worries of the public or the voters. And we're concerned about taxes being raised or loans and indebtedness. The prior proposal from 2022 called for indebtedness. So the people were not given the time to prepare for this meeting, and to top it off, having a meeting shortly before an election is inappropriate. I, again, agree with many people that have said this agenda item 1 should be tabled. Turning to the comments, there's a concern about parking that's raised over and over and over again. And the response simply has been that the jetty parking is not legal, it's haphazard, and we're going to be removing unofficial parking. Then, in response to the concerns, it said that there's going to be 110 parking spaces. I've never, ever heard that before. And that's at page 698 of the response to the comments. Where are you getting these 110 spaces? There's not going to be enough parking. The concerns have been raised. There's been no traffic mitigation report, and the Coastal Commission is going to require. We have concerns about the preschool. We've talked very much about this, and I think it's a legitimate concern. I think that you do have the powers. Nobody ever tried to exercise the powers to lease the preschool and keep it open as a valuable community asset. There was concerns presented about security and maintenance. The response to those concerns were, quote, the sheriff will handle it. The sheriff's going to handle all the security issues and the concerns about people, in the park, alcohol, if it's served at the community events, all that's to be handled by the sheriff. And that's at page 676 of the response. There's also concerns that have been regarding dog waste and the impact on the environment. The response to that with the project would not, quote, significantly increase unattended pet waste, close quote. I don't think that's an appropriate response. Saying, yeah, we notice it. It's going to be a problem, but it's not going to significantly increase. I think it needs to be addressed more thoroughly. I'm not against a park. I'm against rushing forward without more thought put into the project. There's also concerns about fire department access. The response, which was inappropriate, was we don't have to address this. We're all good. There was no comments received by the fire department, so we need not address the community. And that's at page 708. There's concerns about coastal views. Again, we were told, no worries, don't worry about that. We're going to do an errata. Well, the errata says we're going to prevent development, including the building, and from substantially blocking views. That's at page 709. What does that mean, substantially blocking views? You're not addressing the concerns of both the Coastal Commission, the community, and as required under other jurisdictions.
Wrapping up, please.
Okay. In summary, the future is this election that's coming. There should be no decisions before the election. There's no need to rush. We need to extend the vote and table it for agenda item 1 to determine if the community wants new blood and a new look at this. The big concern is this is a plan about board legacy and the work they've done. I appreciate the work they've done, but we have to focus on the community concerns. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further comments, we'll close the public comment period and open up for board questions and comments. Would you like to go first? So make sure we still have Jill there.
She's unmuted.
Since I sort of teased about my conversation with Ray Mueller, I'd like to just make a comment about the preschool. 3 years ago, when the board voted to acquire the Picasso property, it was to create a community recreation center. And so creating the community recreation center was a given with that investment of public monies or a public asset. But at the time, one of the board members asked if we could find what he called a small corner of the preschool for a childcare center. And of course, many members of the public asked us to do whatever we could do to retain some childcare capacity. Prior to GCSD engaging the architect as one of the ad hoc members on that project team, I did investigate. I had no idea to start what that meant, what you would have to do to incorporate childcare into the CRC. I investigated the California Title 22 requirements for licensed childcare facilities, including many emails, exchanges with the preschool owner, Candace, for advice on both the regulations themselves, what's an appropriate class size, and so on. I also visited several community recreation centers that included childcare space to see how they were set up. Title 22 requires specific square footage of indoor and outdoor space for child. The outdoor space is actually twice the indoor space, which in my view may be the state letting perfect be the enemy of good. I'm sure most parents would give up some of that outdoor space just for more spaces in the capacity. The Group 4 architects, when we finally met with them starting in August of 2022, have designed many CRCs. It's actually our architect was local from Montera, including licensed childcare facilities. She advised in our first project meeting, I came with all of the requirements in hand. Certainly no objection to trying to include childcare space in the CRC. She advised us in our first meeting with the fairly stringent zoning requirements on this parcel with the current zoning, and that there was not enough space on the parcels to include a licensed childcare facility of any size within what is a very small CRC. It's not quite as big as the Ted Adcock Center. And every CRC that I looked at that had childcare space was at least 4 times as large as the space that we're considering. That's the reason why a hybrid option was not presented to the public. We literally could not draw it in this space, but we did evaluate it. In that October meeting, I know it was a sort of an emotional and sort of a chaotic meeting. I don't think it was clear that we actually had reviewed and considered a hybrid space. In addition, and actually about the same time, our board's general counsel researched the district's CSD powers and determined that GCSD's authorization to construct and operate recreation facilities, which is the power that we have, does not include the authorization to construct or operate childcare facilities. So in February, the board reviewed the final draft for the CRC, which is much like it is today. I appreciate actually the challenge that poses to parents. The thing that makes me most sad is, you don't forget this sort of stress. It makes me sad that 30 years after I was on wait lists for any childcare, the situation is still the same. As mentioned, Ray Mueller committed at that time to working to find a way to replace at least some of the coastside childcare capacity that will be lost. Since then, when I come across them, since I got educated in what the Title 22 requirements are, when I see a property come on the market that could meet those requirements, I've sent him those listings. Last month, I met with Supervisor Mueller and the county executive on a matter unrelated to GCSD, but we had a discussion for an update on the childcare needs of the coast and his efforts in that regard. At the October 9th MCC meeting last week, Ray Mueller reported that he and the city exec are zeroing in on 2 sites, was the way that he put it. And I know they're very aware of the limited time frame because we did discuss that last month. I texted with him. I saw that actually half an hour before this meeting, and texted with him. He said they do have 2 that they're working on. One is maybe a bit iffy and a long shot, but they do have 2 they're working on, and he knows that May is his deadline. So I just wanted to provide all of you interested in childcare with that update. I have a number of other comments, but if other board members would like to take a shot. Yeah.
Related to that. Does approving this M&D does not really address the issue of the recreation center and uses?
We're also approving the plan.
Right.
And I wanted to point that out.
I wanted to, clarify.
Barbara, what's before you tonight is approving the environmental document, the mitigated neg deck, the MMRP, as well as the project plan. You're not approving the project itself. That would be for future boards to do. So we've talked about this a lot, which is there may be phasing for this project. We may not have the money to do the whole project. We'll do something that says we'll do the park first, or we'll do the recreation center first, whatever that may be. So we're not putting a spade in the dirt here. We're approving this environmental document, and we're approving the project plan.
Which will go
a lot more approvals to go through to actually start a project, not putting CEP and whatnot.
In my,
What's about what you're doing tonight, right?
please. We, in my simple language, like I said, we first decide what we want to do, which is what we've been doing for the last 7 years. And then what we're allowed to do, which is the permitting process to go through, where much could still change. There are 13 more permits and review steps to go before we actually have a plan. And then, as we've said, that's when we figure out what we can afford to do and at what pace.
So can we stay here for a second before we move on? I pulled down from the website the anticipated future timeline for Granada Community Park and Recreation Center project. It's on our website, right? It's not inherently clear in what's on the website what the actual process is, right? Because I think I was confused by the resolution that was presented today because it read to me like a go, no go decision. And I looked on the website to try to understand exactly when we would be making a go, no go decision and when the public would have opportunity to weigh in. And at what point would we reach a threshold of no return, right? So I think if we could be very clear, at least for the board and probably for the public, to understand what is the exact process, because what's here is very, very opaque. And I personally just need more clarity.
And I guess opaque is one word, but it's also unknown maybe, because again, that's for a future board to decide. So let's pick something. Okay, we're going to decide as to enhance the community center as the first phase, not touch the actual park itself. A future board would have to look at that and say, here's going to be our first part of this broader project. And we're looking at, they'd return to staff and they'd say, here's what we want to do, put together cost estimates, put together plans, do all this kind of stuff. bring it back to the board looks at the cost estimates, they look at the budget, they say, yes, this is where we want to go. And then we would move forward with that. And then we'd have to go through the whole CDP process, work with the county for building permit, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I tried to, it's
Clear.
It's
Understood.
opaque, but unclear more so.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, so let's just take, for example, I'm sorry, your name. Elizabeth, right? Raised some interesting points tonight that I have not heard before. I'm curious. And I would love to sit down with council or have council sit down with her or do something to have a conversation to understand exactly what their point of view is, right? Now, let's say, for example, hypothetically, we decide that there is an alternate pathway to the use of space for the building. We now are a budget, we are a board or an entity that has limited resources. Like if we decide to go down a different path, I would like to stop paying money towards a plan that we may not execute against, right? So like we're headed down a permitting path that does cost money. We're headed down a path that would require us to allocate time, resources, and funds. If we were to deviate from that plan at some point, then we're backtracking and now we have to go through another process.
And I
again.
think what I'm saying, Jen, is we're not headed down that path. Your board would have to decide to send us down that path, decide what that path is and send us down that path. If your board approves this document in front of you and this plan, that does not incur, we're not permitting it because you haven't decided on a project. So it's a complicated process. I get it.
So what are we voting on then?
You're approving the environmental document for the broader project. As
Right.
part of CEQA, you have to do that.
That part I get.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm talking about the plan.
The project plan, you're approving the rendering, the plan that was done and shown to
The
your
design.
board in April, the
Yes.
design, if you will.
Yeah.
You're approving that plan, but it doesn't say you're going to build that plan or we're going to go permit that plan. I'm not going to go get civil engineering people to do civil engineering. I'm not going to prepare detailed landscape plans for any of that.
So
You're
what does
approving
the
plan.
approving of the plan lead to? What's the next step that you do with that?
Maybe I can help here. So you're approving a plan that will then be implemented in whatever fashion the board decides. And so later you may decide, okay, let's say a bucket of money shows up at GCSD, then you can just implement the entire plan that you approved tonight by going to the county to get the required coastal development permits and any other permits you need from regional water or anyone else. Or it might be that for budgetary reasons, you have this plan and you can only implement certain pieces of it at a time. And so this plan gives you the framework for all the future permitting that you need. And you need something to give direction, at least, to have something to hold your hat on to move forward with different components of the plan.
Okay, so let me ask it a different way. Why do we have to approve a plan tonight?
Well, it's certainly the board's discretion. You could decide not to approve a plan.
I mean, like what
tonight, but
happens if we don't, is what I'm trying to understand. Like, what are the consequences?
the consequences of that is that you have nothing in place, no overarching planning document in place on which you can implement any project. And this will just languish for a while until the board decides it wants to approve a plan that, again, staff needs some direction on what components you want in this plan before it goes ahead and decides to make recommendations about future project components. So it's an overarching planning document. That's really what it is. And it's very common, like, for instance, state parks or even open space districts do master plans for parks, and they don't necessarily build all the components and they don't permit all the components right away, but they have a master plan for the park that they can use.
And that's a good analogy because I'm more familiar, sadly enough, with sewer. And we do sewer master plans, and it doesn't mean we're implementing all the projects. It's say, here's what we've got to do, what we're looking to do in the next 5 or 10 years. So
Well, I've had my hand up for, because I wanted to go follow up, which is we would be approving the mitigated negative declaration and the plan, essentially saying that the plan that we already approved a year and a half ago.
You didn't approve the plan.
Yeah, we did.
We did. We approved a draft plan.
No.
We
What
approved
you did
to
is you
take that plan into CEQA, but we didn't approve the plan.
right. You approved the project description to be analyzed pursuant to CEQA.
Okay, that's
Board has never
To be
agreed-
clear, was the only reason I planned at that point, right? So I'm very much wanting to understand why the urgency to vote on a plan tonight is necessary. So I know Jill has her hand raised.
If not. I just have a question. So you're saying that if we approve this resolution tonight, then we're not really approving the park. We're approving the ISM&D to move forward with the project description as written. The project description that'll then be given to other regulatory agencies during permitting and to San Mateo County and such. So say like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Jill, just for clarity, a year and a half ago, the board approved a project description to go through the CEQA process. The board didn't approve any particular plan. It's before you tonight is approval of a plan like I described when Director Randall brought up the question of what are we approving. It's akin really to a master plan for a park. It's really what it is. And so at some future date, staff is going to be presenting more specific components of the plan that would then go through permitting, and whether it has one component or multiple components, and one will.
I get that. My question is different. So say 2 weeks from now, after we direct our legal counsel to contact LAFCO and figure out if we actually can lease to Picasso Preschool, we find out, hey, we don't need to do anything. We can lease to Picasso Preschool forever. They're perfectly fine. But if we approve this resolution and approve this ISM&D, we approve the project description without the preschool, can we add a preschool later, or is that deleting it forever?
Well, what I will say is nothing is forever, right? A board, you can't bind a future board's discretion. If this board approves of something tonight that a later board decides is going to change, that board would have to go through a process to vote on changing the plan. So to be clear, no, this board can't bind a future board's discretion, and a future board can't bind another future board's discretion. So nothing is forever, is what I will say. Now, you raise the issue of the authority. Again, I stand by my memo. GCSD has no authority for childcare facilities to construct or maintain a childcare facility until LAFCO grants it that power to do so. So, and that's a long process.
And I'm as guilty as anybody for using the word plan in a lot of different ways. So for clarity, what we approved before was a project description. This would be a plan with the MND and CEQA review behind it. If we approve this resolution as written, the MND, the mitigation plan, and the plan, what is the next step? And I understand master plan, the Quarry Park master plan went through all the process, and somebody asked at the end, where the funding was coming from, and they said, oh, we don't have funding. It's, first we get a plan, and then we take it through getting, a CDP or whatever, and then we'll go look for funding. And so if we approve it with the plan tonight, what can staff or the project team do next?
Well, subject to your authority. I mean, the first question is going to be what funding, and Chuck, chime in here if I get anything wrong or you want to say something more different, but it's all going to hinge on funding available to do any of the components of the plan. And at that point, if staff makes a presentation to you about we have money to do X, and to see whether the board wants to move forward with that particular component of the project.
Maybe ask more specifically, because I have the list of permits and future permits and approvals that was in the MND. And so my assumption was that the whole plan, next step would be to go through that permitting process. Is that incorrect?
So the MND has to address what's called the whole of the action, which is everything that will stem from your approval tonight. So the MND is supposed to disclose everything that all the impacts and any potential approvals that you need. So the MND covers all our future actions moving forward, right? So you go through, Chuck presents to you, I'd like to get permit approval for either the whole park, the whole development of the whole park, or a specific component of that. He will then present that to you with, funding and then move forward with permitting, et cetera.
Right. So I don't know if we're dancing around something or what, but at the end of the day, what it feels like to me is that like we're effectively building a sandbox that we will then go and build the castle within. We're saying that this master plan is the sandbox, and this is the thing by which you all as an entity will go forward and start to execute against and bring back to the board recommendations. And so I'm struggling with the fact that we are deciding this sandbox tonight. I also agree that we were given this document 7 days ago, and then I read in the agenda that we're voting on a plan. To me, I thought, and maybe I missed this, and I'm very sorry if I did, but I thought in this meeting, all we were reviewing were the comments and the responses to the comments that were being made, and that we were waiting and giving you all more time to give answers. So it feels very much like jarring to feel like I'm making this decision this evening when I don't feel personally as a board member and representing the community that I've had enough time to digest exactly what's been responded to and to be honest, I also agree with a lot of the community here. The responses were disheartening. Like if we take a step back, like I bought a piece of property in this community and built a home here because it was a community of fewer than 4,000 people that live together, are connected together, that build relationships with each other. Some of my dearest friends are in this community. Like this is a very special place. I'm very honored to be on this board representing. And I feel like we're ending in a bureaucratic way. The answers were disheartening and cavalier and in a lot of ways cold. And I'm a consultant. I get scope of work and I get things being beyond a scope of work for this agency to respond to something. But we as a board have a responsibility to our community, and the responses that came back were not community driven. And so at the very least, I read this feeling like we have a responsibility as a board or as an organization to come back to these questions with more consideration. They were very brief, they were very cryptic, they were very dismissive and repetitive. And I felt like some of the people wrote some very detailed messages to us, and we did not take time and honor those responses. And so I feel pressure to make a decision this evening, and it's not clear to me like why we have to make this decision tonight as it stands. I don't understand.
And let me answer your previous comment, maybe Nancy's too. You're not setting we staff, right? Us in motion to do anything. I mean, literally, if your board approved this plan tonight, and that's completely your discretion, you're not setting me in motion. I'm not hiring any consultants. I'm not doing anything. And I'll kind of put a finer point on what Bill said. I won't come to you with a proposal of what to start first. You'll sit down and come to me and say, Chuck, here's what we're looking at. Can you flesh this out? Because you're the policymakers, you know your community, better than me. We're staff, we implement your actions and desires.
So then you're making a case for there no need to be a vote this evening. Like I don't see the urgency to make a vote on that portion of the resolution if that's the case. Because I, as a policy member or maker and representative of this community, do not feel adequately prepared to vote on something like that. Like at the very least, there are tons of conversations that need to be had with community members. I said a year and a half ago when we decided to vote and on proceeding with CEQA, I'm the one that brought Ray Mueller into the discussion, and I am not comfortable making a decision that will impact the community in Picasso in any way when we don't have a solution. I also will say, for the record, for all the families, I think it's very convenient that you live very privileged lives and you represent 24 families and you come here and you hold us accountable to the coast, providing solutions for your children. I hope you show up at everything Ray Mueller does with the same veracity and the same conviction and hold him accountable, because that's who's the person that will provide solutions for your children. That's the person who has the access, the money, and the resources to create educational pathways. But we have done something that I think is abominable. And I do think that it's a decision that has impact that I'm not proud to be a part of, but I do think we have to come up with a solution to ensure that we are not displacing families. And we're forcing a decision and then creating a sandbox that causes action. There's consequences to this decision that I just don't feel prepared to make tonight.
Just want to check. Matthew, go ahead.
Oh, I have
Several things to say. First, we didn't get this document 7 days ago. There have been 2 30-day review periods. There were 60 days. This is the MND that's got the comments on it.
The comments, that's what I'm talking
Right.
about. I
Right.
read, the comments take a long time to read just as well, and they're not sufficient.
Well, it's been stated several times that we only had 7 days to look at this. Well, no, that's just not true. The document was released back in May. So the board and other knowledgeable people that paid attention had a long time to go through this whole thing. So it's not.
But the response to comments is not
Right,
enough.
right. There are 2 main points of contention here that have come from the community, and I recognize that. The first is Picasso and the childcare. Well, in response to a comment that said, Picasso is the last remaining preschool Half Moon Bay to Montara. In a 10-minute Google search this morning, I found 15 childcare / preschools from Half Moon Bay to Montara. This is the last remaining one, or the only one available, is also highly inaccurate. There's 15 of them at least. And if I'd done more research.
Please.
Can you please name all 15?
Yeah. Pardon?
Please name the 15.
They're probably home-based.
They're home-based.
Some are
But that
home-based.
is preschool.
Some are businesses. Seacrest, Kids Buy, I left out the last word, I think it was the C. Coastside Children's Program, there's one in Half Moon Bay. Coastside Children's Program, there's one in El Granada. Coastside Children's Program, there's one in Montara. Montara Kaimana, Picasso is included in that 15. Seaside Kids, Jardín Los Niños, Coastside Parents, Alameda Station, Wilkinson School, Holy Family, what's this? It's the Holy Family Church in no, this was it is from Half Moon Bay North. There's one called Izzy, I-Z-Z-I, and finally there's Los Listos. So the dependence of the entire coastside, it sounds like, on this one preschool, that's just not accurate. There are at least 15 or 14 more in the area. And if you I understand, I raised kids myself, didn't have anything local at all. And I understand the problems because people have to work. Most houses are two employed people, and it's a lot of work. But there are places available. And the other problem, big thing, is parking. And
Matthew, before you go on, I just want to say, just remind that this is the board discussion period. We have closed public comment, so please keep your comments and let the board do their discussion. And the hands I see up, we have closed public comment on this one. So we'll continue the board discussion.
I want to move to the ISMND document itself.
Do you want to talk about parking, Matthew?
I have.
Something about parking.
You started parking.
You started parking before Nancy said something.
Well, I thought we would maybe get that as a separate object thing. But I'll state what I think about parking. This is a small local district. We own that piece of property over there. You cross our property line, you're on Caltrans property. By the time you get to Surfers Beach, where people park and change their clothes and have showers and all that, you're in an area with at least 8 other agencies involved. All, the Corps of Engineers, the city, the county, the Coastal Commission, Caltrans, the Harbor District, the Fish and Wildlife, U.S. and state, and even the fire department stations right there too. And it's also part of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. So these are all much larger much more powerful, much more well-funded outfits than this is. If there's parking needed for Surfers Beach, which I agree, there's 8 big agencies that have much more control over it. And I don't understand why Granada people should pay property tax to supply parking for, it's in the district, but it's not our property, and it's not controlled by us at Surfers Beach. And there's all these other agencies that are included. And personally, I don't want to pay property tax to provide parking when there's all these other agencies involved. That's their job. That's not GCSD's job. That's my attitude toward parking.
Barbara? Couple things. It was my, I guess, I appreciate Jen's comments, and I was under the impression that what we would be voting for tonight would be on whether this document adequately analyzed the environmental impacts of and provided mitigation for those that were unmitigatable for the project as the draft project that we approved some time ago, or whatever we did. I thought we were approving it to be reviewed. And then we would have something that is, we could present for grant funding and stuff to say, we have the environmental, it's been approved, it's been through environmental review, and there's no like terrible things in it. Having said that, I understand that it's a complicated document, and I actually think it's true that there wasn't that much time for review. I have a couple thoughts. I think the parking problem is solvable. We can work with Caltrans to see if they can keep some parking in the right of way. They could put some lots in the right of way, for goodness sake. Harbor District can maybe do it. We could not implement the village green and leave the dirt parking lot sitting there. As long as we don't improve it, people could continue to park there indefinitely. I mean, there are options on that. The parking was a surprise that it came up so late in the process of this. The preschool is a really much harder thing. Having reviewed all the documents, there are 2 key things that I believe are true. One is that right now we don't have the authority to run a preschool, and it took them, I don't know, 8 or 10 years to get the authority to convert to a community services district. Number 2, if we did get authority to run a preschool, we spent $1.8 million on that building. Is that an appropriate use of taxpayers' money to benefit 24 students? I don't know how many are from our district and our taxpayers. Is there a way to, would there be, and I'm not saying I'm for this, but would there be a way to put it back on the market and sell it? Okay, we do that. That means we do not have a recreation center and probably never will for this community. The 2 are, I am convinced, are incompatible in the same building. It's really a hard problem, and I don't know the right solution, but I don't think, I am absolutely convinced in the work that's been done, we cannot do joint use. The rules are really strict, guys. They really are. Just really honestly take a look at them. You can't have one place that has licensed daycare in the day and maybe an occasional evening meeting. I suppose the most flexible, occasionally you could you have to move everything out of the room when you have a meeting there so that none of the toys are touched by the adults coming in for the meeting. It makes the center non-functional. So I don't know I don't read this MSNBC as making a final decision on that. It seems as if we're saying that it's our goal to make a community recreation center. We're not, my understanding was we would just be voting on whether the environmental review is adequate. And that I am in support of. I do believe that the environmental review of what was proposed is adequate. All these other issues, and I respect your issues, Jen. I understand what you're saying.
What I would just offer is that like we can talk about the environmental or the, I don't know the acronyms because you just said MNC and I was like,
ISMND.
Did I say MSND?
Yeah, see, I was like, I don't even know. But there's too many acronyms. But when I look at the survey that we had done at some point, there was survey results in the packet, right? And question 18 was, if only one park and recreation project could be accomplished by the district in the next 5 years, which of the following projects should be undertaken? Check one only. 69% of those respondents said park, and only 32% said small community recreation center. Right. And I feel like, again, I was not on the board, but I feel like an opportunity seemed to present itself where we could get both. Right. And it's like, I think we went down a path. And what I'm encouraging in this moment is that we have an opportunity to listen to the community and to just pause. I'm not saying to not do anything, but what I am saying is let's not force a decision that disregards so many people's perspectives when, to your point, Barbara, like there are options that we have, right? Like what would it hurt us to take a couple more months to have some conversations, create a subcommittee that would actually engage community members in thinking about some of these issues and determining what is our comfort. I would love to have our council have a conversation with this council and come back and tell us what he learns, because I trust you emphatically. Like if you say, I had a conversation, I know, I'm just saying, right? But why are we trying to force this right now? It just feels like we have an opportunity to at least do all we can before we proceed. And that way we can go forward with confidence. And right now it feels like we have taken two separate things and put them together in a decision that doesn't feel are necessary. When if the board is comfortable agreeing to the report, let's have that conversation. But can we table the plan, the decision on the plan? That's what I'd like, and to be a little bit more thoughtful as a board.
Okay, I want to just follow one of the points I made. The use of that building was really not studied as part of the MND, correct?
No. Right. It's totally separate.
What do you mean by you? I mean, it.
Recreation center versus preschool.
No, because.
Separate.
So approving it doesn't lock the use of that building in place.
No, but we're approving the plan, the project plan. They've combined two things. I
know. All right. I'm just clarifying.
Are they married? Yeah. Plan and the MND.
Well, there's no point in, I would defer, if you're going to defer the plan tonight, I would defer the MND too. Because
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm more likely to approve the MND than I am to, yeah.
So that would be my recommendation, because if the board came back to me in 3 months and said, we're totally redoing this, we don't like this plan, then we're going to have to relook at the MND.
Right.
Redo it.
So.
Okay. And I want to say one more thing, which is that if we stop and start over, this community will not have a park for a really long time.
And let me ask Bill, what would happen if the board approved the MND and the plan here? What would happen if they decided later to say, let's keep Picasso going?
Well, they'd have to do an amendment to the plan, and then we'd look at whether or not, whether or not there's any environmental impact associated with doing that. There may not be, but.
And we have to have this community if we want to spend a lot of money on that.
Well, but the point is, sorry, this gentleman raised, like, if the parents want to come back and give us $2 million to buy the building back, why wouldn't we? That's a significant statement. If they raised $2 million and said, we are willing to buy this property back from you, I feel the community has spoken, right? Like, one of the things that I feel like was said in conversation, right, was, we didn't actually ask the community point blank, like, if it's a choice between a community center and Picasso, which do you choose, right? And we can look back and say, hindsight is 2020, but that is the reality, right? And so now we're here, and it's been 10 years since this conversation started. This community has changed significantly in the last 10 years, particularly post-COVID. Like, I just feel like, as representatives of this community, can we look at ourselves and say we've really done everything we can to make sure that we are representing the community on this issue? Because we will have this forever. And if this is about legacy, like, then do we want it to stain, or do we want it a glowing like emblem of what we've done?
So.
Go ahead, Bill.
So, and I don't want to say anything, if you want to defer this is the board's choice. I just want to clarify a couple of things just for information for you. It's a rec center and it's also the offices of the GCSD.
Right.
So, so that would, change GCSD's plan because we have a lease here.
Right.
And so that, just recognize that. And two, we really would have to solve the childcare issue because so
but I'm not actually saying like let's never talk about this again. I mean, we meet every month, like we'll be here next month, right? I'm just saying, do we have to decide tonight this decision? Like, is there a way we can actually think about some next steps that would give us more information between now and next month or in January, just so that we are making a more clear decision? That's all I'm proposing.
I will call the question in a moment. Just a couple comments, having spent a lot of time.
There's no motion.
Right.
Well, okay.
Well, to table.
We'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah, motion to table it.
Right.
It's different.
Having been in the weeds with the architects and the current zoning on the site, it really needs to be either a CRC, which is tiny, or a childcare center. The normal, just to give you an example of the restriction, the normal lot coverage limits for a commercial or residential property is like 35 to 39% lot coverage. On this site, it's 10%. You couldn't build Picasso preschool today on the parcel it's on with the current zoning for lot coverage limitations. In order to get what we have, we would have to merge it with the other lots. That's not necessarily a barrier. I just want to make the point that there are complications. So I think it is either a childcare center or a CRC. It's really, when you stand in the Ted Adcock Center and try to imagine both cohabiting, I just don't think they do.
And sorry, just to be clear, make sure I understand. And so that means like it's not a separate building that's a community rec center and then like a preschool.
I think that parcel is either a CRC or a preschool. And there may be complications about doing something new there because of the zone. The other thing that I put out there for a future discussion, because I agree we should talk about this more and explore what's really possible there. Probably the easiest alternative for a childcare center is to find somebody to buy it with the current grandfathered business use permit, because also remember the current zoning doesn't allow for commercial use. It's only for public use, such as a community center or a park or a library or so on. And so if that business use permit should come to a close for any reason, it can no longer be used for any commercial purpose. So there's some risk in that conversation that we need to have.
There are special use permits that you can go for the county for.
Before I lose my train of thought. Thank you. So I think it's important to have those questions. We never explored, because it was the board voted to acquire the property to create a community recreation center. We did never explore what's the other alternative. When we do explore it, because I'm happy to explore it, one of the questions we have to, or you started to go down this road, with the GCSD as a public agency having invested public money, we have to be concerned about the use of public funds if it is for the exclusive use and benefit of a private commercial enterprise. So I'm not going to discuss that question now, but it's one of the things that we have to look at. I looked at Highlands Recreation Center, where they do have an early learning center along with their park and recreation center. They run it directly, which is, I think, not something we're up for with our staff of 2. And so that's just to say there are a lot of things that would have to.
And Mike, I'm done with it.
No, you're also, you're not going back to little kids either, Chuck. So there are a lot of complications in that discussion that would take much more time than we're going to invest tonight. I would, I will make a motion that we table.
Jill has her hand up.
Jill, do you want to?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, I have a little bit of a cold. First, I want to thank the community for coming out and voicing your concerns. I know you're taking time out from your families and personal life to attend this meeting, and I really appreciate your sacrifice. And though it doesn't seem like it, people are listening and your voice does matter. Please remember this is the beginning of the process, not the end. This is the first public comment period required by CEQA, and everyone who commented, contrary to other board directors' opinions on next doors, calling them naysayers or latecomers, they are important, and we appreciate your comments. You are the spirit of CEQA, and you're using your legally protected right to address community concerns on the issues you feel have a significant impact on your lives. So, great job. Your comments are right on time. In regards to the resolution, there's no point in discussing it tonight. I, as a board director, received this packet 48 hours ago on Tuesday. There's no way I can digest that. I need more time, and everybody else needs more time too. I would also like to point out that the inherent problem is not really the ISMND, but the project description that was provided to the consultant, Montrose. The consultant didn't extinguish the existence of a 30-year-old coastside public resource, Picasso Preschool. The consultant weren't the ones that didn't survey the community. The option for a hybrid preschool community center, they do exist. I've had 2 children in them. The kids pick up at the end of the day. The parents come in and help because no one leaves until everything's put away and the room is flipped. It's easy. So this hybrid preschool community center, it should have been brought before the residents, not dismissed. GCSD should have contacted LAFCO to see what did they need to do to continue leasing to the preschool, but they did not. They had legal counsel write a letter saying, we don't have the services, but they wouldn't have legal counsel contact LAFCO, and that says a lot. They promised previous board members that they would, and they promised a needs assessment and analysis. That didn't happen. So I myself have asked twice in public meetings for the GCSD to reach out to LAFCO. Finally, I did, and I got a response back that we don't need to do anything to continue leasing to Picasso Preschool. We are not directly providing childcare, and thus we don't need to have that service. So I think we should have sorted out the preschool before we got to this point. We had 3 years to figure it out since the purchase of the property in 2021. We could have applied to LAFCO twice and been approved, but it's obvious that people didn't want to keep the preschool. So with all this, I make a motion to table this resolution. I ask for a hard pause on the process. We don't have to vote on this tonight. Instead, let's get our legal counsel to call up LAFCO and see, what's going on with Picasso Preschool, and then report back to the community. That's what we're here for. We're here for the community, and we need to be a working board that listens and compromises. But first we have to gather all the facts. We got to figure this stuff out, not just go, well, it seems pretty hard, Actually, the LAFCO to add a service is 12 months. So you put in a report. It's much less than this ISMND nonsense, Put a report in with them, and 12 months later, you're approved. Easy peasy. One last note, there's no one on the board that's against having a community center and park on the Strip. I don't know anyone who doesn't want a park. We all want a park. The issue is the process. And again, I would love to dive into Montrose's ISMND and all these response to the 90 comments, 4 from regulatory agencies. But 48 hours, nobody can do that. I would, again, make a motion to table the resolution, and I ask for a second.
I second it.
Wait, Nancy already made that motion.
Oh,
I don't think I quite got it out, but I'm fine with Jill making the motion.
She didn't make the motion.
right. Jill made.
Jill made the motion. Jen tabled it. I know and I don't think it's on, Jen seconded it. We had on the list something about a future agenda item on talking about expanding our powers. I think that still needs to be a future agenda item because it's tied up in which direction you would actually go with that building in the longer discussion. So I'm happy as part of board discussion of the motion to table the motion on voting on this and sort out what discussions need to be had to really understand what the options are for the preschool before we look to expand our powers. Any other discussion on the motion? Can we call a vote?
Okay.
Director Clark?
Aye.
Director Dye?
Aye.
Director Marsh?
Aye.
Director Randall?
Aye.
Director Grant?
She's muted again.
Two thumbs up. Your
Motion is.
Okay. Good community discussion and good process and good board discussion.
I like the second, comments. Yeah. Thank you guys. And thank you everyone who showed up and everyone who's commented on the process.
Okay, we will move on to the next agenda item. It won't be rude if you want to sign off or go.
Can I just be clear on what are the next steps we're asking of helping Chuck? Like,
So Bill will contact LAFCO, probably Bill and I can contact LAFCO. I've actually been through the process. Forming a CSD from a sanitary district is a much more involved process than adding a power to a CSD.
But there are a number of other questions that go with that.
Yeah, LAFCO lives for policy. So,
but I think just to be clear on Director Grant's question, which is like, what are our options relative to Picasso? What does LAFCO see in terms of us continuing to extend the lease and what's their perspective on that?
I think that needs to be a different agenda item.
No, I'm just saying for a follow-up.
For follow-up, no.
Conversation that they would have.
So let me walk you through this because I know there's a lot of people have said a lot of things about my memo and I just want to sort of paint the picture for you so that you're clear, because it's clear that you have a few different options for the preschool going around, which is one is sell the property, another one is get the additional power. So when we got the, our original resolution, the district's resolution in 2013 was to add subsection 61-100 E and F to our powers, which are recreational, community recreation powers. And then in the LAFCO staff report in 2014, it says on page 8, it says services to be provided include sewer, garbage collection, and parks and recreation. And on page 9, it says all other services permitted by community services district law are inactive and would require LAFCO application and approval by LAFCO.
Right.
But the part of my memo I just want to point you to is on page 2 of my memo, I do say we acquired the property, but we didn't acquire the preschool.
Mm-hmm.
So in my opinion, as stated in this memo, continuing the lease was not the issue. The issue was the power in 61-100S is construct, improve, maintain, those 3 words. So if you were to construct, improve, and maintain the childcare facility that you're leasing to someone else, that's where I think the rub comes in.
And the maintain is extending the lease because effectively we're landlords.
We assumed a month-to-month lease and the board was gracious and extended it and gave them actually a lease that they could actually rely on instead of just month to month.
Right.
And so from that perspective, I was comfortable continuing that. And maybe that's what Director Grant was talking to the LAFCO person about. But I think once you get into maintaining, improving, once you get into improving and constructing, which the building, given its current state, that will happen. My recommendation would be to add that power because of particularly LAFCO's approval is very explicit about no other powers.
Right. So it would be extending the power versus just leaving as is and just having to extend the lease. Gotcha. Okay. But in the conversation of extending our powers, can you have a conversation with them about our current situation and asking them what their reaction would be to that, or if you don't want to do that?
Well, we could certainly do that if LAFCO wants to, look at very laissez-faire view of it, but that doesn't necessarily protect the district.
Correct.
And what I always worry about in these situations, particularly from a liability standpoint, is someone later claims you didn't have the power to do that. And therefore, all your actions associated with that are what are called ultra-virus acts, and they're void. And basically, that could lead, technically under the law, could lead to individual and board liability.
Right.
So you don't want that. So I think the better course of action would be to look at this strictly and say, if this is going to be like a permanent fixture here that we are then going to construct and maintain and improve.
And we should extend our powers.
We should extend our powers and recognize that costs come along with that. And that means
Or if we sell it, then we don't need to extend our powers.
correct. If you sell it, you're selling it in your proprietary capacity.
Yeah. Right.
And that's not a big deal.
And that's my issue, which is if it's going to be just a preschool and not include our offices and recreation things, which, and people can argue about this, but Nancy did a lot of research. And when you look at it, the preschool uses the whole facility right now. There's no spare space.
Well, that can't be true. There are 50 capacity and there are 24.
I think you'd have to go inside the space. It's pretty, it's got a ton of happy clutter.
Right.
But my point is really irrelevant to that, which is that, okay, somebody can make the case again for joint use. I'm convinced that that isn't, but that's not the point that I'm making.
Right.
That's a debatable point, but I don't think it's true. If it is just going to be a preschool, are we living up to our responsibility to the ratepayers of El Granada by taking money that could be spent on the park and which we thought we were spending on a community center to run a private preschool for kids
but this is why I feel like
if you may interrupt. Look, I'm going to chair first.
Okay, I just wanted to finish my sentence.
Finish your sentence. Okay. I think we're getting into what is going to be a future agenda item to have that debate, which is not on the agenda tonight.
Well, I think it's related to the agenda, and I think it's okay to discuss this. And I think for the benefit of Chuck and myself,
going forward,
knowing what you're thinking, because
obviously Bill cuts me off.
Because I don't disagree with you. I feel very strongly that we represent a total community, right? But that's where I feel like there's an opportunity for us to have more information, to take a more holistic view, right? Because someone raised, well, like there's been no positive comments. Okay, well, that doesn't mean literally to me, like, of course, people are not going to be happy or going to write complaints, right? Like, I want to be able to sit here with confidence and say that we truly did everything. I stood on the corner and shouted from rooftops. Like, I asked everybody to come. We took all of the information and we were able to sit here with confidence that the decision that we make is the decision that best represents, not perfectly represents, but best represents this community. And I just don't feel at this point we can say that, So if we decide to proceed because the community says, as a community, this is what we want, and we're willing to jeopardize Picasso and say that this isn't it, we want this rec center, then we as stewards of this community will have to represent that, right? Like, but I just don't feel that we have that information right now.
I hear you. And maybe another survey is in order.
I think it's not a survey. I think we have to figure out something other than a survey. I think you mentioned, I'm not trying to bring elections into, but I heard you mention like that there was this committee that did, the job was to go out into the community and do some real like surveying, like not surveys, but really like finding other ways, listening, right?
Workshops or those sorts of things.
Well, we did.
I think actually this is a good opportunity, something we've done a couple of times before that I think we should wait until after the election for, which is, you mentioned, we call it an ad hoc committee of the board, which can only be 2 people, so that it's not a quorum, but we could form an ad hoc committee of the board to basically lead that investigation. We can find people, or we can actually recreate at that point the Parks Advisory Committee, if that's what the committee wanted to do, or the committee could find a way to go out and sound the community. But I think it really calls for some hands-on work by a couple of board members to develop and provide then guidance and options back to the board. I just think we shouldn't form that until we know what the board going forward is. So
Yes.
I would table that, maybe that for
January, February.
and I mean, November 18th or whatever it is. December, yeah.
Because they,
Oh, yeah.
December will be, you're right, December would be the new board.
yeah, they take, see, first Friday in December.
Oh, yeah. See, look at that. So that like 2 months from now. Look at that.
So that allows for even some fact finding from LAFCO. I think maybe some fact finding from Dawn, the architect, on limitations with disturbing the site. And it should wait until then.
I'd be willing to be on that committee or with
I think you're chair.
ad hoc committee.
Great. I would love to have you do it. I think it would be wonderful.
And then someone else.
Just clarify in 30 seconds, if I hear the dual use challenge or the hybrid use, but as far as 2 buildings, you said there's not enough space on the property. I do question because I'm familiar with special use permit, there's zoning exception you can get or something you can get. So I'm just curious, is the whole list of like options considered, was it,
Well, if you send me, if it's not on here, send me your email and I'll send you the zoning, the El Granada Gateway zoning. So you can take a look at it.
Yeah, so but was there like architecture, or did they do like 2D site plan that just illustrated, oh, here's the footprint of your community center, here's the footprint it would need to be?
Yeah, on the communities, there's a presentation from the architect on the website and some of the Parks and Rec information. So it is basically a footprint, but I know, and we have the renderings, and she did a little bit more work than that.
Okay, great.
Great.
Okay, are we ready to go?
Bill, if the district were to become a childcare center running entity, would it be the same basis as it is now? Is it a for-profit business? Can the district do that?
Yeah, I think it can. I think it can continue to lease the building to a private operator.
Nice subsidy.
So I think that's true. But the question, as I've said before, the question LAFCO always asks is, do you have the money to provide this? Right. So that's always what, one of the threshold questions.
Yeah, that's part of why I asked that question.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things related to that is, I remember at the time we decided to acquire it, and as you pointed out, that we maybe have a little less expense than the previous owner, and we lowered the rent by about 20% more than 20%. So it is actually well below market right now. So there are complications no matter which way you go, and I think they just all have to be explored. That rather than owning the building and leasing it, I think is more of a concern for me about gift of public funds. I think we'd have to eventually come back to market rate. Actually, Steve once chided me for charging below market rate with public funds. So I think, so we can wrap that up and move on to the next item.
I don't think you'll get a fight from anybody.
I want to stay here all night.
Thank you, Jen. That was well said. Okay.
Next has our hand raised.
Go ahead, Jill.
Is it possible to take a 10-minute or 5-minute break real quick? Because we've been going for 2 hours.
We can take 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Adjourned for 5 minutes, 9:13. We're coming back at 9:18.
I brought you snacks.
I'm getting
Recreation programs and events and on the RV issue.
So our drawing class has been going really well. We've had some very happy people, and that will go through the 29th of October. We just had a huge weekend last weekend on Saturday, on October 12th. The Ecology Recycling Day was in the morning, very well attended. Then we did Fall Fest with San Mateo County Parks, which was extremely well attended. And then we had our movie night that night with Beach Break Entertainment, which was also well attended. So it was a very fun, busy day. Saw a number of you there. We have a history walk coming up on November 3rd. So that will be excellent as usual, I'm sure. And we already have a lot of people signed up for it. So that's really nice. We've been talking to the Half Moon Bay Library about trying to start maybe a once a month story time that the library would put on here. And that would happen, once a month. And then also a craft time for older adults, maybe once a month, that could happen in this space. I've also been in discussions with somebody who wants to teach a sewing class. So again, we're limited to this room. That's, we're doing the best we can here. And then I would also have to get my hands on a number of sewing machines, but I think the library would be able to help with that. As far as the RVs go.
Wait, can I just say, I want to say something about the RVs too, but I just want to say congratulations. The Fall Fest was a good job. It was really well done and it was lovely to see GCSD there.
Yeah, we had a very popular craft. Yeah, I mean, I think more kids probably came through our booth than almost any other booth because we had a really fun craft.
It was great to see actually all of the different community and firefighters and highway patrol and sheriffs and all of those organizations out there.
And the sheriffs had their emotional support dog there.
Very popular.
Adorable dog. So then on to the RVs. There's actually been quite a bit of movement since this memo was written. After multiple conversations with Supervisor Mueller's office and with the sheriff's office, the sheriff finally gave us some clear direction that the RV that had been down there for about 2 months was completely on our property and said, therefore, we could tag it as trespassing. And that would actually be the fastest, easiest way to, have it forced to move. And so I finally did that the next morning after I talked to the sheriff, and it moved the next day. So that was great. And there was another RV down there that day that I just knocked on his door and told him, I'm about to tag that pickup truck in these 2 RVs, and he just went ahead and left. Since then, I have had the logs rolled just a little bit forward toward Obispo Road so that it can't happen again. And so now they are just at the edge of our property line. And then, so if somebody parks there now, they are definitely in the county right of way. As opposed to on our property.
So, congratulations.
Well done.
Thanks.
That takes some persistence.
And it takes a long time. It's not simple to do.
Yeah, I mean,
I hope people realize that. I posted congratulations to you and everyone in next door, and one of our major admirers posted 5 weeks. It took 5 weeks.
It was actually longer than 5 weeks.
I just want to commend you for
and just to be clear, it's the challenge is that it's if they are on. Sorry, somebody's trying to get in. If they are on county property or in that right of way, the county has a process they have to go through. I mean, yes, they can red tag them. They'll keep red tagging them. And obviously a lot of people who are being red tagged can't pay those tickets anyway.
Yeah.
But they have a process where they have to try and put that person in touch with resources and find shelter for them. They can't just make them leave.
Right.
And that's the thing about it.
Life moves.
It makes it easier for a private property owner to make them just leave. But again, that RV could have just as easily pulled out and just crossed the street and then maybe would have been brought into services. My understanding is they've moved on to Moss Beach. So
I will grab some Coastside Hope brochures also that we can put on their windshields. And
right. And that's something that Mike Kalaggy's office reminded me of, is that Coastside Hope, Puente, and the Peninsula or Pacifica Resource Center are the 3 core services that will help with those issues. So
they'll help them get government services. They can help them get on a shelter list. They can help them with food and so on.
Right. So
we have to figure out a way to get them to help with dumping their RV tanks.
Right. And that's
actually the gross part.
Actually, they may be able to help with that because that would just be it's $20 to do it at a state park. And that's something Coastside Hope could do.
Yeah. So I met with Supervisor Mueller last week and mentioned the idea of how about the county has a voucher program for that. And then Mike Kalaggy's office called to talk about it. I mean, yes, that would help solve that immediate problem, but they want to try and help them get into the shelter. They don't want to just continue with the same status quo.
And they were sitting there in a protected view. I mean, we had people here talk about how important the views are, and we all agree with that. So it's well done.
All right. Okay. Any public comment on the Parks and Recreation report? Seeing none, any more board comments? Seeing none, we will move on to the engineer's report. I didn't see anything new on it.
We got an email from John Maynard today Sam has gotten 3 design build bids for the replacement of the section of the Sam force main in Montero. And they're reviewing them and going through them. They look to be kind of disjointed. You know, doesn't look like it's apples to apples to apples, but we'll see what happens.
Okay.
And he said he was pleased with the bids, told me. So, Kishan.
Well, we only had one bid that had the cost of the project. I haven't looked at it yet, so I don't want to talk about it in detail, but it was, the numbers were kind of all over the board.
Okay. Any other questions on the engineer's report? Any public comments on the engineer's report? Seeing none, we'll move on. Report on Sewer Authority Midcoast meetings.
Well, we haven't really had meetings. A couple things. Evidently, the Sewer Authority building was robbed last night.
Oh, wow.
Who would go to this?
Well, they came in a side gate. They used bolt cutters evidently and got in, and they couldn't get into the buildings, which have alarms, but they did go into the trucks and steal a whole bunch of equipment, chainsaws and, just all kinds of stuff that were in the trucks. They don't have cameras. I think they won't be getting cameras, but it's just, it's just one of those things that's really discouraging because they lost a lot of equipment and so forth. Also, they're proceeding, the SAM audit is going very smoothly and the new auditors are doing a good job. The finance committee today was up.
Good. All right. That's all?
There hasn't been a meeting. The last 3 meetings.
There haven't been a meeting, so nothing's happened.
Since our last meeting, there hasn't been.
And there's not going to be one in the first meeting in November either because of Veterans Day. So hardly, and Kishan is still in India.
Oh, yeah, the Monday holidays.
In Italy?
India.
Oh, India.
Okay, we'll move on then to the consent agenda, September 19th, regular meeting minutes, October 2024 warrants, August 2024 financial statements. Would anybody like to pull anything on the consent agenda?
Move approval.
Seeing none.
Second.
Director Dye moves to approve. Matthew seconds. Any other comments? Seeing none, can we have the vote?
Director Clark.
Aye.
Director Dye.
Aye.
Director Marsh.
Aye.
Director Randall.
Aye.
Director Grant.
Yes.
Consent agenda passes 5-0.
No public comments on the consent agenda. Okay, move to committee reports, seminars, conferences, other committee meetings. And none. The information calendar, attorney's report.
No report.
I have a question. There is a fight right now, a case between San Francisco and the federal government about dumping into the ocean. Is it something you could quickly explain what it is?
Well, I'm not involved with the case, so I wouldn't do it any justice.
Okay.
But I don't think it's not in the appellate court. It's not in the Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. So it's just a district court case. So I don't know.
It's something about, anyway, all right, never mind.
Yeah, well, San Francisco has perennially a problem with wet weather, wet weather overflows, and they've had perennial problems with pollution. So,
From what I've seen in the media, the gist of it is that San Francisco says they're only responsible for what they actually put out and not for the quality of the water where it goes.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
And
because they don't know what that water could have been affected by something else.
And the feds are saying the opposite. You're responsible for the ocean water and what's in it.
That's pretty
That'll be
much how I
easily
read
resolved.
Okay, no attorney's report, general manager's report,
Nothing further.
administrative staff report.
Just quickly, we had a check be stolen out of the mail that we sent out last month. And since that time, then somebody created a fraudulent check. It was caught in Albany, New York. And so fortunately, that credit union called us and, tagged it right away, and they called us. And so we were able to put a stop payment on that. And because of that, the bank has basically told us we have to enroll on positive pay. So we actually have now enrolled in positive pay. So now every month when we set up our warrants, that gets uploaded into the bank, and that way they can check it.
against every check that comes through, as opposed to calling me every morning, which is what they've been doing since it happened. So
that feels like a better option.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely. Originally, I thought, well, it's just a one-off, but because they actually had they had our accounting number, our account number, and our routing number, and the check that was created was a completely fraudulent check on different check stock. Still had my signature, a board signature. Also, still had the memo that it was paying for the sewer service charge preparation for Harris and Associates. So when the 18-year-old kid came in and deposited it, that's when the fraud department at that credit union questioned it. So I was even able to Google his name and look at his basketball stats from last year. He just had,
oh, wow.
Especially his steals. I got to see his stats on his steals. So, you know.
In the same time frame, one of my checks at our credit union also went through the same thing, ended up in Albany, New York. And I had my credit union, they made us close all our accounts and open all new ones.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And plus other, more stringent
thing that's happened in Albany, New York since I grew up there.
So.
Okay.
So I have a clarification because Hope, you don't need me anymore because Hope is a better lawyer than me. But she mentioned the case went to the Supreme Court, and I just Googled it, and it has to do with stormwater. And so they have the city has a joint stormwater sewer discharge. So do they have to account for the stormwater quality?
Oh, before it goes out.
Yeah. So I apologize. Thank you.
Thank you, NPR. I just heard it again.
And I missed that.
Well, that makes more sense, right? Like the ocean part.
Yeah.
Ask city dwellers what their sewer rates are like.
Yeah.
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 That's why I live here, for the sewer rates.
Yeah.
We just got ours in Half Moon Bay, and it's about $480 more than GCSD.
Wow.
See, you moved to the wrong place. Cheapest sewer rates.
Our residents should know how lucky they are.
This is a commercial right now. We can make for GCSD.
Good management.
All right, next item.
Geography.
Next item is future agenda items, and I caught December, the CRC Childcare Ad Hoc Committee item.
How long did we postpone the MND for? Did you say?
We didn't. I
tabled
think
it indefinitely.
table it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Until we sort out, I think, the CRC childcare.
Okay, so another
Direction.
6 months maybe?
No, let's not take that long.
Okay.
As the person who's going to be in the ad hoc community, I'm saying I do not want to wait 6 months.
She's going to move it.
Yeah.
Jill.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jill.
Go ahead, Jill.
Thanks, everybody. I would like for a future agenda item is to define the GCSD roles and responsibilities. And what I mean by that is when I was on the Mid-Coast Community Council, the MCC, we did this at the end of every year. We just went through the roles and responsibilities of president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, everyone. And it was all written out. Everyone had a paragraph. And so it was understandable for the public and for the board to know who does what, and this is how it works. And that includes the general management team like Chuck, Hope, Nora, Bill. And just to have that all put together for review at the next meeting. And then if we can get that buttoned up and everyone's happy with it, we could give it to the new board members in December and give it to the public. So there's more understanding how the GCSD as an agency works.
That's in our bylaws, right?
It is, and it's something I've been working on to bring in sort of a new packet of bylaws that could also serve as an introduction to new board members. So cool. I'm already on that.
Great.
So I'll bring that. Yes, we'll have that ready for December. That gives me, originally we were kind of looking at doing an ordinance code revamp and all that together. Go ahead and bring those bylaws in on December.
Jill suggested November, but it'll take, if you can do it for November, I don't know how far along you are, but having it for new board members, even if they're voting on it as their first board meeting, is better than waiting longer than that. So
The framework's already there.
Yeah.
So it's not.
It's very generic. It doesn't really define much.
No, the new bylaws do though. The new bylaws, I'm bringing in a lot more information.
Great.
Great. And you can look at Midcoast Community Council if you want a reference, because they did a really nice job defining everybody's role. Thanks.
Okay, anything else? Not, then we are adjourned at 9:36.
Not our fastest, but our most
That was a very
accomplished a lot.
good discussion.
Good discussion.